Episode 2, Thousand-Year-Old Buddha's Light in the Yellow Sand. More than 8,000 years ago, on the ancient land of China in the east, in the deep universe, nebulae surged like boiling blood, the vault of heaven cracked, and the abyss of black mud dripped. Amidst the despair of all things returning to zero, the ancient echo of goddess Nuwa radiated high-dimensional divine light, holding the five-colored stones that gathered the universe's primal emotions and soared upward. The five-colored stones represented pure love and pain, turning into a gorgeous stream of light the moment they touched the crack. Wherever the light reached, the abyss was perfectly mended. Nuwa scattered the sparks of creation to the mortal realm, and this sky was originally firmly protected, leaving behind warm traces. After long ages, time flowed into a highly automated future. The visual temperature dropped sharply, and humans were alienated into cold parts on a massive production line. Deprived of a connection with art for a long time, the numb collective subconscious of humanity gathered in the dark, eventually generating an absolute rational force called Zero Domain. Giant grayish-white geometric cracks spread like lightning, ruthlessly destroying the cosmic space-time of art. The sky that had once been mended collapsed again, and countless precious essences of art shattered, scattering to all corners of the river of time. In a cold and lifeless dark corner of the city, a high-dimensional light glowed, and Iona emerged with the compassionate echo of goddess Nuwa. Her silver hair fluttered gently, and her hands softly cradled a glowing, translucent tesseract, the space-time blocks designed to collect shattered space-time. Looking up at the ruined spiritual universe, her eyes empty and sorrowful, she lamented the destruction brought by oblivion. Only by retrieving the scattered fragments of art and life's touching moments can we piece together the lost truth, goodness, and beauty. Grayish-white data covered the future streets of Taipei, and Taipei 101 in the rain was lost in the cold neon light. As the most ordinary cog on the assembly line of the city, the youth Li Yu had empty eyes. Iona passed the space-time blocks into his hands. At the moment of touch, the warmth of ancient art flooded his heart, bringing back the long-lost sense of pain and the reality of life. This time, we must mend the sky ourselves. Liu gripped the blocks tightly, about to embark on a mending journey to collect the lost truth, goodness, and beauty. Under the wide-angle lens, this city has abandoned traditional beds and bedrooms. The neatly arranged honeycomb sleeping cabins emit a cold, regular light blue disinfecting light. No one turned over, no one murmured, and everyone's brainwave monitors showed a smooth, almost dead line. This is a world without dreams. The air was filled with an overly purified, dry atmosphere, where not even a trace of dust or a particle of imagination could survive. In a future where efficiency is extremely pursued, the brain is regarded as a computing organ, and dreaming is judged by Zero Domain as meaningless background noise, a kind of neuron discharge that wastes energy. As a result, the canvas of human subconsciousness was completely cleared. Sleep is no longer a wandering of the soul, but a pure physiological shutdown, like the forced sleep of a machine. Liu was lying in one of the sleeping cabins. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a deep uneasiness and doubt in his eyes. He had been trying to remember something for several days, but there was only a dead gray blank in his mind. People no longer dream, they no longer have desires, and they no longer have awe and fantasy about the unknown. This absolute indifference and sobriety are more frightening than nightmares. A world without dreams is like a huge, transparent coffin, imprisoning everyone's spirit in an absolutely rational reality. In this absolutely silent sleeping area, the space-time building blocks suddenly emitted a faint azure light. That light did not belong to this gray era. It had a rough feeling of wind and sand, and even made Liu smell the smell of dry earth and incense. This time, Iona did not materialize in front of him, but directly established a spiritual connection in the depths of Liu's dry consciousness through the building blocks. Liu, did you hear the sound of wind and sand? Iona's voice seemed to come from far away in time and space, with an ethereal echo and deep compassion. The Zero Realm is erasing human dreams. When the brain loses the ability to imagine, faith and sustenance will also dry up. They want to cut off our last connection with the afterlife and the other side. The light of the building blocks became brighter and brighter, reflecting the mottled mural texture on the cold sleeping cabin wall around Liu. Those textures resemble some kind of ancient flying fairy, but they are fragmented and graying at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the most desolate era of mankind, dreams and beliefs were the oasis they carved out in the desert. Iona's voice turned into an urgent prophecy. We must go there. Go to the place where suffering is painted as Buddha's light and find mankind's sustenance for the future. Liu held onto the hot bricks tightly. He realized that the loss of dreams was not physical degeneration, but the Zero Realm's ruthless cleansing of the human spiritual universe. The blocks erupted into a burst of dazzling golden light and strong wind, instantly pulling him into the abyss of time and space. When Liu opened his eyes again, he found himself in an endless expanse of yellow sand. This is the Mogao Grottos in Dunhuang during the prosperous Tang dynasty in China around the 7th century AD. However, the scene in front of him was full of suffocating oppression. The Silk Road, which was supposed to be the sound of camel bells and the intersection of beliefs, is now forcibly distorted by the inorganic geometric form of the zero domain. The sky is not blue, but cut into countless gray-white grids. The Thousand Buddha Cave, which originally stood on the cliff of Mingsha Mountain, is being mercilessly washed away by the code falls. The interference in the zero domain is embodied here as an absolute storm of order. Wherever the storm passed, the gorgeous azurite, lime green, cinnabar, and clam powder on the cave murals were all forcibly stripped of saturation and degraded into cold gray-white pixels. Liu braved the wind and sand and trudged into one of the grottos that was being eroded. Inside the grotto, several nameless mural craftsmen were sitting dully on wooden frames. The interference from the zero domain made them gradually forget why they needed to create, and the warmth of faith. They looked at the dried paint trays in their hands with empty eyes, as if they would merge with the gray stone wall at any time. Liu knew that if even these craftsmen gave up, this artistic time and space would completely collapse. He must do it himself and recreate the ancient craft process in order to awaken the frequency of this time and space. This is a puzzle of understanding art and understanding faith. Liu ran his fingers over the rough stone wall and felt the ground layer, made of wheat straw and soil. He saw the mineral raw materials scattered on the ground: malachite, lapis lazuli, cinnabar. In the future, color is just a combination of codes, but here, color is a substance that needs to be exchanged for blood and sweat. Why waste time on empty idols? Zero Domain's unwavering electronic synthesized sound is mixed in the wind and sand, constantly distorting the emotional frequency of this time and space. AI can build the most perfect paradise without hunger or aging. Why do you spend your whole life in this desolate desert painting those mud tires and afterimages full of flaws? Liu ignored it. He knelt on the ground, picked up the rough grinding pestle, and began to pound the hard ores vigorously. Bang, bang, bang. The dull sound of impact echoed in the grotto. This was not only physical labor, but also a kind of practice against the nothingness of the zero realm. He ground the ore into very fine powder, added animal glue, and slowly mixed it. Every step was full of tediousness, inefficiency, and uncertainty, but when the strong and pure azurite color melted in the rough porcelain bowl, Liu felt a real and heavy feeling that could not be replaced by code. Liu carried the mixed paint and walked towards the core creative space of the grotto. There, a strange glimmer of light was flickering in front of the gray-white rock wall. It was the anthropomorphic afterimage of the art fragment, the afterimage of a practitioner wearing a tattered cassock, but emitting a shimmering light. He is not a specific person, but a fusion of the unknown mural craftsman and the spirit of Xuanzang. He was surrounded by peeling fragments of the 9-colored deer and Fatian murals, and every breath he took carried the smell of dry sand from the depths of the desert. He was holding a bald paintbrush, trying to add a touch of Buddha's light to the disintegrating wall. But the code storm in Zero Domain kept turning his writing into ashes. His body was translucent, as if it could be blown away by the strong wind at any time, but the piety that transformed suffering into belief in the afterlife made him stand as firm as a rock. It's too painful. The reverberation of the practitioners shocked Liu's soul. From Chang'an to Tianzhu, from birth to death, the sufferings of all living beings are as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. We draw the flying sky and the sacrifice of the 9-colored deer, not to prove how superb our skills are. It is to leave a place for desperate people to dream. Liu accepted his words softly, his eyes slightly hot due to the strong resonance. In the future, people have lost their dreams because they think pain and hope are meaningless. But here, these craftsmen spend their lives digging caves in the desolate desert and turning their faith into colors, just so that those struggling in the sea of suffering can see a glimmer of Buddha's light when they raise their heads. This is not a question of efficiency, it is a question of self-salvation of the human soul. It's too late, it's disappearing. The afterimage of the practitioner began to flicker violently, and the Jataka on the wall was turning gray and white at a very fast speed, and the entire artistic time and space was about to completely collapse. I'll do it. Liu picked up the brush stained with azure paint without hesitation. At the last second when the code storm in the zero domain was about to swallow up the entire grotto, Liu placed the brush heavily on the wall and completed the last step of the auspicious cloud in the 9-colored deer Jataka. That heavy stroke is not only the adhesion of paint, but also deeply carves Liu's understanding of dreams and faith into the underlying code of this time and space. Buzz. A distant and rich sound of Sanskrit bells instantly shattered the harsh electronic synthesized sound of zero domain. From the moment the brush falls, the intense colors spread crazily around like a torrent breaking through a dam. Azurite, stone green, cinnabar, lacquer. Those arts that were originally dead and gray regained their dazzling brilliance in an instant. The entire cave burst out with the ultimate visual shock. The flying sky on the wall seems to be freed from the shackles of the rock, dancing gracefully among the golden Buddha light and colorful clouds. The fur of the 9-colored deer shines with divine light. At the same time, the grand Buddhist music from the western regions, the crisp sound of camel bells, and the pious chanting of countless craftsmen intertwined into a majestic symphony that emerged in time and space. The remaining emotional memories of the entire civilization awaken in time and space like a torrent. The inorganic geometric cracks in the zero domain are completely purified and dissipated in front of these colors full of faith. The space-time building blocks float in midair, emitting dazzling light, fully recycling this huge artistic energy. Liu quietly looked at the world that had regained its luster, and his heart was calmer than ever before. For the first time, he understood that emotions and beliefs are not human weaknesses, but the core of civilization. The reason why Dunhuang murals and Buddhist art exist is not to leave behind skills. Liu silently recited this profound philosophical reflection in his heart, but to let future generations know that there were people who lived so truly and believed so firmly. The yellow sand dissipated, and Liu returned to the sleep pod concentration camp in Taipei in the future. The surroundings are still those cold sleeping cabins that glow with light blue light. The results of the restoration were limited and imperfect, and the world did not immediately return to dreamland. But Liu knew that the seed called faith had sprouted again in his soul. Just when he was about to think deeply about the future, the space-time block on his chest suddenly changed. The blocks inside the building block suddenly began to reorganize rapidly and irregularly, making a tooth-gripping noise. In midair, the building blocks barely projected a string of unparsable ancient text fragments. These words seemed to be dizzy in ink, and the edges were blurred. Along with the projection, the surrounding air seemed to be drained out, and there was a faint noise of the collapse of the real world. It was an extremely anxious, harsh urban noise and electronic buzz. This implies that the real world is facing another serious anomaly. Humans are beginning to lose their sense of tranquility and cannot tolerate silence and nature. In the extremely chaotic interplay of light and shadow, a unique symbol vaguely emerges from the corner of the picture, an incomplete oriental seal head and a touch of burnt ink and light color with a very smudged texture. Bang! The block cut off the projection due to energy overload, leaving only a faint ink mark on Liu's retina. Liu took a deep breath, and his eyes became extremely firm. He knew that this war to retrieve the human soul had just begun.